how many games of Marvel Champions have you played? Like entirely, since the beginning of your start of playing. Do you even keep track of such a stat? I used to back in 2021. Back then I played roughly, from what I remember, at the end of December of last year, it was like 700 some games. I think it was just shy of 750, and then I stopped keeping track because I don't know. I just didn't really care anymore, I guess. And this year I've probably played a lot more. The reason I ask is, in a recent Reddit post, somebody brought up that they hit 450 solo wins, which is awesome, right? It's absolutely awesome that, one, they kept track of that they were able to do that. They also were able to keep track of 100 wins in each aspect, and 50 with Spider-Woman and Atom combined, right? Because they don't just sit in one aspect, they mix their aspects up. So one, it's crazy that they were able to do it that efficiently and be that even in different things. Because for me personally, like, justice is way off the scale, right? And protection is much further down. But it was pretty cool to see that somebody got 450 wins, that they're keeping track. And a lot of people are talking about how, like, that's really awesome. You play the game a ton. And it made me realize I probably have a serious problem, because I don't know what their, like, win rate is or anything. So I don't know how many total games they've played, which would be really interesting to find out. But yeah, that's why I'm curious. Like, am I way out of the norm with the amount of games I played? I mean, it's easily over 1,500 at this point that I've played. And I want to know, is that bad? Is that too many? So let me know, like, roughly. I know a lot of people don't keep track, but if you do rough estimates, where you think you would be at. But the other thing that I found that was interesting is they showed their total amount, and it shows they're complete. And at first I thought, right here in this column where it says total, I thought this was how many games they've played, and that their win rate was only 7%. I was like, oh, bro, that's not good. Like, you should be closer to 50. But then I realized that's the total amount of combinations, and they have this entire spreadsheet, with the exception of what was the one thing they don't have? They don't have Wrecking Crew. That was the one thing they don't have, is Wrecking Crew in here. So it actually add a little bit more. But if you add up all this stuff, the total amount of games that you could play, if you did one of each combination, right? One, Black Panther aggression against Claw, Black Panther aggression against, Ultron, right? You just kept going, like, all, right? The total amount of games that could be different in solo would be 5,705 games, which is, like, crazy to think about. And so it got me thinking, all right, if you did 5,705 games, right? And the game's been out for about a little over 3 years, but we'll just say 3 years to make it easier. Which that would be about 1,095, I think, days. You have to play just over 5 games every single day. That's nuts, right? That's, like, insane. That's an insane amount of games that you have to play every single day, but it's probably feasible, right? You could probably do that. And so that's why I'm curious, like, how many games people have played, because that would be nuts if somebody did every single combination. I thought I was gonna be pretty close, because I was like, oh, I've played a lot. But now, looking at that total amount and reflecting on how many games I've played, I realize I am nowhere close, because I've definitely doubled up on certain aspects and certain people, right? And that's not even including, like, basic, right? You could play basic heroes, which would add, like, a whole nother 1,300 some onto the total, which is just bonkers to think about. But anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. So let me know your total amount of time that you played. So this next person wrote about their first time playing Nebula, and it was not a great experience. Now, I thought this was going to be about their hero, the hero Nebula, because I've been reading a lot that, like, a lot of people don't like Hero Nebula, and I get it. She's kind of weird, but this was actually about the villain version, which got me thinking, and we'll get into it in a second. So, just venting, but playing the campaign for the first time on standard with Rocket and Groot. Groot is OP, please nerf. I have Nebula down to 3 health remaining and on stage 2, and I'm still on the main scheme. One more turn and I have this thing in the bag. I just need to do the villain phase, or just get the villain phase over with. Well, the villain phase begins and causes the main scheme to advance, which makes me add 2 evasion counters, which then leads me discarding cards from the deck, which then causes me to deal face down and counter cards to each player. Still, no big deal. As soon as I get my turn, I should win. The final scheme starts with 6 out of 18 threat, and I get to the point where Nebula is scheming 3 times due to all the encounter cards and surge cards dealt that I end up with 24 threat on the main scheme before I would even before my turn has started. So 24 threat plus 6 threat on the main scheme means 1 villain phase at 30 threat to take the game from me. Still trying to decide if I play this one over and just move on, or pretend that this is the worst case scenario, never happened. Now, honestly, this is kind of one of the biggest issues with Nebula. Now, I like villain Nebula. I really do. I'm really happy they took a chance with her because I like the whole technique cards, right? And that you can kind of see what's going to happen. I think that's a cool mechanic, right? And something that we didn't really see a lot because a lot of times it's just like add a face down back card, right? But no, you can see what's going to happen, which I always thought was like kind of cool, fun way of doing a villain. The problem is, as this person has said, that it could be kind of a cascading badness, right? And Nebula kind of went under the radar with how rough her design was, right? Because it was, to me, one of the shining spots of Guardian's Most Wanted box, right? Ronin's a mess. The Collector 1 and 2, I know some people like it. I still think he's a mess. Drang is fine, right? But nothing amazing. That, to me, Nebula was like the one decent spot where they took a risk and it wasn't terrible. And it's funny now because we have so many good villains out there now, especially in the X-Men cycle. It's like, even though it was the best of the box, that's not really saying much, or one of the best of the box is not saying much. So anyway, I just kind of want to know people's thoughts on Nebula. Like, looking back now, I know at the time, especially, everyone was kind of like, there's something good in this box. It's Nebula. It's not terrible. And I don't know if I feel that way anymore. I still like the idea. I still like the risk that they took with her. But because we have so many options now, I barely play against her because of this exact scenario. This happens, more times than probably not, right? The cascading avalanche of badness, right? I mean, this is not a rare thing to happen. Now, for 30 scheme to happen, or for them for adding a 30 threat, that's a little more rare. And that's why I want to hear your horror stories too. Let me know your worst Nebula story, villain Nebula story, because I'm kind of curious by that and how bad it's been for you. But this leads into the last question. And they ask a retcon question. I've never known Fantasy Flight games to do such a thing, but it'd be nice if they released a 100 card pack that retconned and re-released many of the core and early expansion cards with slightly more powerful versions to meet the power creep. I'm thinking of reworked Hulk and cards like Haymaker that are just bad or outright outclassed by another card with similar effects. I want this to happen. I think they should do it because I think it's an easy moneymaker. I don't think they'll ever do it, unfortunately. And it seems like a couple people in this said, that they rather just do new heroes than rework old ones, which is kind of insane to me. That like you're just gonna give up on Hulk or do like another version of Hulk, which is the more likely thing is they just do another version of Hulk, like a what is it, Red Hulk or whatever it is. That's crazy to me because there isn't like a ton you would have to do the rework. And the thing is, the community has come out with some ideas to rework Hulk. I mean, you can go on Reddit pretty much any time, and there's probably a post or two in the first couple pages of just like, here's my idea for a reworked Hulk. Like the ideas are out there, right? And they just have to kind of snatch one or like rework it slightly. But it's really kind of a shame that they won't go back and fix certain heroes such as Hulk. And Hulk is probably the most obvious example of what needs to be fixed. Kind of Groot does now too. And I made the joke earlier about being OP, but now with the new Colossus ruling and kind of now it screws over Groot and how his counters work, there's some balancing things that really do need to be done. And unfortunately, it's going to make some old stuff, I don't know if obsolete's the right word, but just not fun. And that stinks because we spent money on those things. And instead of going back and fixing it, they're just going to let it be. And that's kind of disappointing. Now, again, they might surprise us and actually do a retcon pack. I highly doubt it. Like a lot of people think down in Reddit. I just don't see them doing it, unfortunately. But it does stink. And it does stink. And the thing is, it is a natural thing to happen because as they come out with new heroes that are kind of pushing the rules in different boundaries, it's naturally going to affect some of the older heroes. And do we just play the older heroes with the new rules and then that makes the older heroes really bad or just not as good? Or do we play heroes differently than we would with the new heroes and adjust, well, they had certain rules back then, right? Like it's this weird balance of what do you do? So I want to know how you're balancing it all. Right? How do you balance it? Are you just playing with the same consistent rules or whatever's the newest release on Hall of Heroes? Or are you not even paying attention to that and waiting for their actual like 1.4 is the current rules release? Are you waiting for 1.5 before you make any drastic changes to your game? Kind of what are you doing? How are you playing it? How are you adjusting to some of the new rules that affect older heroes and are you playing with those older heroes anymore? Or are the new ones just so good that's not even worth playing? So that's the last thing I want to know about. Anyway, that's it for this week's Reddit reply. Hopefully you enjoyed this. do me a favor while you're down there, answering all these questions. Make sure you hit like, hit subscribe. All that stuff really helps out the channel. And like I said, go join the Discord because we talk a lot about Marvel Champions there, and it'd be really cool to have you over there. The link's down below. Take care.